Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight black mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies, and how the hell are ya? The maniacal minister of the occult, the devil you know, the Reverend Dan Wilson here, alongside my co-host. He's a Stark in the streets and a Lannister in the sheets. He is the cunt slayer, as well as the 2014 Georgia Wrestling History Matchmaker of the Year, and the Commissioner of Empire Wrestling, Mr. Andrew Alexander. How's it going?
Hulk Hogan, we coming for you, nigga.
Apparently they came for him. We definitely could have talked about that here in a minute. The big news items pretty much dominated the news cycle of the week, so there's no shortage of topics for discussion this evening.
No, definitely not at all. Some big news this week.
So how was your week?
Man, it's been pretty good so far, man. Made a big purchase Sunday, bought me a new car.
Oh, shit. What kind of ride did you pick up?
Well, I don't want to divulge that for various reasons that I can tell you off air. But, I mean, they'll make sense to you. But it's pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite fancy for me, but, I mean, I'm going to be paying for it till I'm pushing 40, so...
It's a true American way.
Love it. Oh, yeah. Got to work just to live.
That's right.
Be broke all the time. I mean, other than that, it's a pretty normal week, but, I mean, that's some good stuff. And like I said, some big news coming out and fun wrestling stuff. And we're about a week away from Fantastic Four coming out, which is, you know, it's going to be an interesting flick to check out. I'll definitely be watching that. I'm not super excited about it, but, you know, it's something to do.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a chance. I mean, I was totally against it completely, just following all of the initial press junkets, and, like, the actors and the director all sounded kind of douchey. But I did listen to the director, Josh Trank, on Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman podcast, and he came off a lot better, like, verbally than he did in print, you know, and so, like, to me, I don't know, it makes me think he's going to respect the material, perhaps original, or maybe more than I originally thought, and so, you know, I'm going to give it a chance. It still might suck a big old fat cock, but it could be awesome.
A fantastic cock, indeed.
Well, the fucking thing just fucking rocks out, apparently. He gets no briefs.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the promo picture. He's fucking butt ass naked. He's, oh, in the name of my sweet Aunt Petunia, I got this big orange cock right here.
How do you think? What's his girlfriend's name in the thing? Alicia? How do you think he fucked her?
Very carefully, I'd hope. She seems like
do
a
you like your
fragile
rock
flower.
Hard?
And she's blind, so maybe she just thinks that that's what dick is like, just getting fucked by concrete.
Yeah, any guy after him would be a real disappointment because nobody's going to get that hard.
No, not at all. Well, I've had a pretty good week. You know, it's been somewhat of a strange week. A manager's work is never done. The Strong Style Psycho Tank is currently on vacation in Las Vegas, so, you know, I thought I was out of this whole manager gig thing temporarily, but no, I'm having to house sit for the Strong Style Psycho and watch his dogs, Boomer and Dozer, and they're just two tanks in dog form, if you can imagine that. So a lot of fun trying to wrangle those fuckers around. But you know,
yeah,
like I said,
man.
Yeah.
If I were you, I'd put those damn dogs in a burlap sack, throw them off the damn bridge.
What kind of fucking animal are you?
I'm an animal. No, they're okay, but they're definitely wild. And they're about 150 pounds each, running around the damn house like they own the place. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then like over the weekend, I got just so fucking trashed. Like I normally don't do that anymore. You know, I'm older, and it takes longer to recover. I ended up actually going out with my wife's friends for one of their birthdays, and like I couldn't hang with them bitches. God damn. But it was a crazy wild night and a good time. But like I was regretting it the next day. Like the older I get, the slower that fucking metabolism gets, man, and I just can't kick out of those hangovers like I used to. I'm gonna have to even reduce my already infrequent drinking binges down to damn near nothing.
So needless to say, you didn't make it to church Sunday.
No, missed it again this week.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time. So, covering some things on the show. We'll go ahead and go move along to the wrestle news. Kicking it off, talking about Empire Wrestling. Of course, as we record this, a huge event will have already taken place the night before this episode airs. But just because we're going to be talking about it in a little more detail next week, give them a little brief rundown of what they can expect, or what they saw at the Empire Arena, and then what they've got coming up. Of course, we know the big Scenic City Invitational is coming up next week, but also big things on the horizon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're looking to get past the Scenic City Invitational, and then we're moving on to prepping for the next mega event in November, Chasing the Grail. So kind of just working to get to that, making some transitions. This week, I think we're going to have some good matches. We got, Ace Rockwell facing the Hit for Hire Bobby Moore. And those two guys are just awesome. Bobby Moore is probably, maybe one of the most improved wrestlers of all time. Just an awesome heel to have on the roster. Ryan Vega defending his junior heavyweight championship against the Baniac. That's going to be a wild match for sure, because the Baniac, he just gets crazier and crazier every week, more unpredictable. But he definitely improves. He's improving on his in-ring skills. Finally, which is always a good thing. And also, Vega going to be teaming with Chip Day to face the Youngbloods for the first time ever. The White Rose versus the Youngbloods. He's going to have to pull some double duty. That and a whole lot more. Midnight Black Mass plan with, I believe the guest is going to be Rush, so that's going to be interesting. See what he has to say after the street fight with Kyle Matthews at Crazy from the Heat. So, I think it's going to be a really good show. We're getting geared up to go back to every Saturday.
He was a giant dick to me the last time on the Midnight Black Mass, and now that he's gotten fucking thumbtacks kicked down his throat, I'm sure he's going to be just a peach. So thanks, pal. I'm really looking forward to that. But, that's why I get paid the big bucks. I ask the hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, maybe he's learned some humility, and maybe he's been humbled a little bit by that defeat to hand to Kyle Matthews in that street fight. The street fight's kind of his environment, and Kyle Matthews more or less handed him his ass. Kyle, he took an ass whipping too, of course, but, he came
I don't know how he
victor,
could have been more humbled if Kyle was the Iron Sheik, but, he's just an unpredictable cat, man. I'm not looking forward to it.
I think the show as a whole will be good. And then the very next weekend's that Phoenix City Invitation. I know that's going to be just a huge event. And if you're a fan of the independent wrestling scene, that's become so popular, you're going to have to make that event, because it's got some of the best talent, not just in the Southeast, really branched out and bringing out a lot of the best talent in the country.
Oh, yeah, man. Guy that just made his debut at the big GFW tables in Las Vegas, Congo Kong, the IWA Mid-South World Champion. He's going to be part of it. You've got Gunner, former TNA star, just fresh off the contract, so one of the hottest free agents in the world right now coming to the Empire Arena. Definitely want to take time to check him out. Guys like Christian Haim coming back in for the tournament. You got Corey Hollis, who made his debut on Ring of Honor Wrestling tonight. He's been on their television before, but their national television debut on the Destination America channel. So, big things for him coming off of that. You got Chip Day in the tournament, who's making waves all over the place, and at Empire included with the White Rose. You got local favorites like KT Hamlin, Gunnar Miller. You got Ace Rockwell in there. Hank's going to be in. It's such a fucking amazing lineup.
Oh, definitely. Caprice Coleman, Anthony Henry. I'm sure we've left out, quite a few names. It's going to be real interesting for Empire fans as well to come check out some of the guys that they see, every week at Empire. See them face some new talent, some new faces, and some guys with a little more notoriety, like former TNA star Gunner and, like you said, Congo Kong. So I expect this show to do really well as far as how many people's there. Hopefully it comes across well. Hopefully we can present that next year and through years to come.
Yeah, these are going to be some schlubs from, maybe even out-of-state schlubs that you may see other places. They're not going to see that. These are top up-and-coming guys. And no disrespect to any of the legends or veterans out there on the circuit still doing their thing, because they deserve all the respect in the world, but these also aren't guys who are at the end of their runs, going around for one last farewell. These are the hottest up-and-coming talents in the country, coming from all over to converge on the Empire Arena at 22 Austin Avenue, Rossville, Georgia. Your ass better be there. Oh, yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So, got that out of the way. Just a little quick plug on that. Of course, me and Al Getz will be reuniting our commentary duo from the critically acclaimed AJ Styles versus Jimmy Rave Pro South Wrestling match that's gotten feedback from all over the world, and thank you all who have reached out to me with kind words about that. Really feel like I've been welcomed with open arms back to the commentary seat, and certainly had a great career there before going into managing with that, so it's cool to be back, and looking forward to the Scenic City Invitational. But moving on in the wrestling news, of course, we hit it at the top of the hour, but the biggest news, not only just wrestling, in the, any type of entertainment pop culture news feed this week, and that was the released comments from the Immortal One, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Really, really damning audio that came out on him. The first video leaked, and it was just like he was talking with some radio host who's a black dude, and, he was saying, nigga, like he says, brother. And, I it was stupid of him, to do it because, but he wasn't being racist there. It was just being an out-of-touch fucking old white guy. But then the second part came out, the leaked audio from the sex tape, and that's where it really got dicey.
Yeah, a lot of questions with this. I don't understand how it's taken so long, because that sex tape's been out quite a while. I don't understand.
8 years old.
8 years old. What took so long for this audio to leak? But man, it's tough. And obviously, he deserves some big slaps on the wrist. He, was dropping a lot of N-bombs, saying a lot of inappropriate things. It seems he said a lot of inappropriate things about, his family and his daughter, which no one's kind of even made mention to. It's just all been focused around the racial slurs. But, he's just really screwed up right now because, we've talked about this on the Black Mass before, how the world is just, it's overly sensitive now. And, not that type of language and that word should be used or anything, but this is a day and time where you just can't be a public figure and do something like that. It's cost him his job. There's no telling how much money it's cost him. He's been, almost erased from the WWE records like a Chris Benoit. And I just don't know. I think there's a bit of overreaction to it, from the standpoint
of. Go ahead.
He was, they took his name off of their Hall of Fame site and things such as that. It's literally on the level of the way they treated Chris Benoit after that. And I'm sorry, but dropping an N-bomb 20 times isn't on the same level as killing your kid and wife and then killing yourself. But that's kind of how it's being treated. This is something that could blow over. I mean, I think the time will come where it's, it's less talked about and it's kind of pushed back. I mean, I think it'll always be there. It's never going to be completely forgotten, but maybe he could be brought back into the fold. And this is crazy because this isn't some fly-by-night star that had a couple good years of a run. This is arguably the biggest star in wrestling history, and this is a huge black eye on his career.
Without Hogan, would there be a WWE? I mean, would they have taken off in the '80s the way they did? With a different guy at the helm? Some say yes, but I don't think so.
I don't think it would have been the same. I think maybe we would have gotten there and, the result would be the professional wrestling that we know possibly. But, because Vince McMahon had this vision and he executed it. But, like you said, could it have been that if anybody else was in that role, would it have worked the same? Would it have worked as well? Probably not.
And let's not forget WrestleMania 1, they literally bet the farm. And WrestleMania 1 was sold on Hulk Hogan. So you really go back and look at that and think, well, if a different guy that didn't have his charisma and drawing power was put in that spot and they did not have the financial success that they needed, then there would arguably not be a WWE today. So, they're all important points. And, hey, I think it is vile. The things you said were pretty bad. But also it's like we do live in this era of society where it's more – people seem to worry about more what people say than what they do. And, I mean, his track record certainly speaks for itself. It's not defending his comments at all. But, he's done countless Make-A-Wish appearances. And, he's had a lot of people – from black folks, come up and speak on his behalf. So, clearly it's like he's not been just a total scumbag about it. He's an old fucker who has some fucking racist thoughts. He's an old fucking guy from Florida. And most white males over 50 have racist thoughts, guys. I hate to tell you. A lot of it's just the era they were brought up in. It's, it's not anything you're going to be able to change now. You can hope you can teach the next generation better. And, society evolves and improves, but, you're looking at people who grew up during, like, segregation and shit. It's a different thing that we'll never experience because, in the 80s, things were pretty kosher with race relations. They gotten more tense in recent years, but, we grew up in a time where it wasn't a thing, and they did not. It was a huge thing. In those days, and you would think they would learn from it, but, like I live in a fucking town called Saudi Daisy, Tennessee, where 96% of the people that live here are fucking openly racist, and it sucks, and it's weird being that guy that has that dissenting opinion. You often feel like an outsider, because I definitely don't agree with that opinion, but, it's just such a fucking hard topic. It's hard for anybody outside of it, like, because we will never know what it's like to be a black man in America. You know what I mean? Like, so we can only talk about it. We can only speculate. We can only see it from our side, and we don't always necessarily see it from their side. So, I always try to respect that viewpoint. But like you said, erasing him from history, like, that's a bit much. He's going to take his lumps, and rightfully so. And he's going to be the object of scorn and ridicule for a few months, and he just needs to dis-a-fucking-peer for a little while. And, eventually people will forgive him because this society loves to do nothing more than build its celebrities up so they can tear them down so they can come back again. You've seen it time and time again with Hogan himself. And anybody that knows Hogan's history, if you've read anything about the business, you know he's full of shit anyway. All due respect to the guy because he's one of the greatest of all time, but, he's been caught in lie after lie after lie after lie. And not like dumb shit, like, fucking Andre the Giant grew in size every time he told the fucking story of body slamming him. Eventually I took that 11-foot tall, 5-ton giant and picked him up over my head, and I press slammed him 3 times, and then I fucking dumped him. It's like, he's not really necessarily the fucking superhero he was portrayed to be on TV. We're all human. We all have shitty qualities. And, being an old racist is a shitty quality. It doesn't necessarily mean he's not a good dude in other places. Like, he's never going to get back those fans that he hurt. Like, I can imagine, a lot of young black guys probably grew up idolizing the Hulk. So now they're fucking crushed, he's fucking just shit all over them. And I don't know that he's ever going to fucking get that back. And he's always going to kind of have an asterisk, but he can't be erased.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, here's the thing. Okay, he said it. Count George Foreman, Mr. T. So many guys that he's worked with that are black have come out and flat out said, Hulk Hogan is not a racist. I don't think saying that makes you a racist. It doesn't automatically, boom, you get the stamp of being a racist. That's kind of how it's portrayed. And, I'm sure there are a lot of fans that he hurt or a lot of people that he's hurt. And I don't have to agree with it, but I can't say what should and shouldn't hurt somebody's feelings. If someone says that word and you take offense to it, that is totally fine, and you're able to do that. But just the reaction, and like you said, to forget about all the good that he's done, and to stamp him as a racist when I got news for everyone. And I hate to let the cat out of the bag, but I've got news for every African American, black, and not Hispanic, Jew, Asian. I've got news for every minority other than white out there. If anyone tells you that they've never said that word or other racial slurs, they're lying. I mean, I hate to spoil it for all of us white guys, but they're lying. We've all said it. And that doesn't make us racist. I'm not a racist against anybody, but I love to tell a good joke about the Jews being cheap or running Hollywood or anything like that, I don't even know any Jewish people that hate them. Like, that doesn't make me a racist. That doesn't make someone that automatically says that a racist. Obviously, there are racists out there, but that doesn't mean that, he's a horrible human being because he just said the word. There's no context. And he's not even like, I mean, I guess he is kind of upset using it as an insult, but it's not like he's really being malicious, saying it to someone, saying it to their face. And like you said, it's just a different era. I mean, I grew up in the generation where if something was stupid, you would go, oh, that's so gay. Man, I can't believe you're doing that. That's so gay. And you don't even, and I still say that, and you don't even mean anything by it. But now, it's so sensitive that if you say that, there'll be people to jump on you and, oh, you shouldn't use that as a word to describe something that's stupid. It's like, that's something I grew up doing. I can't just stop. I can't just be like, oh, Lord, I can't say the word gay because it's going to offend people. And I have no problem with anyone that's gay, ever. But saying that, people would assume, oh, God, he's a bigot. He has a problem with homosexuals. And there couldn't be anything further than the truth. People say, oh, you're so retarded. Now it's like, oh, my God, don't say that. Obviously, you're not going to go up to someone who's mentally handicapped and just make fun of them and call them a retard. It's not the same context. And, I think it's kind of similar with Hogan. And plus, the sex tape comes out. That's fine. That's no big deal. That just goes away so quick. But this comes out, and he's blackballed from everything. So society is saying it is much more acceptable to film yourself fucking and have it come out for the world to see you fucking, than to have a recording of you saying the N-word. And again, that probably goes back to people, well, I'm sure everybody films themselves fucking, well, again, everyone has said that. Everyone says racial slurs. They don't mean them to be racist, and they don't really have a problem with that race, but they've said them. Everybody has. You know, I wish we had a black friend of ours on Promo or Porno tonight, so we could just pick their brain and see, you know, where's the line?
Like not tonight, but like maybe next week. Let's see if we can get a Trevor E on. Maybe he's a really smart guy, and I'm sure he's got a lot to say about this topic. And like I want to get an opposite perspective. Like that's the thing. You don't, like I said, we don't know what it's like to be in that shoes or in that situation. So I would like to hear, like you said, the opposite side of the spectrum there.
I would too, because, that's one problem with this whole race debate is no one can just sit and have an open discussion about it and try to understand the other person's point of view. And, I know it comes from, these type of things come from, slavery and how black people used to be treated, and I'm sure still are treated in lots of parts of the world. But
yeah, that's a big part of the debate right now, is that there seems to be a lot more discrimination now than there even was 20 years ago, it seems. And, there's the whole discussion of systematic racism where basically, like, the culture was built to hold down black people. And, it's when you see the actual evidence, it's kind of hard to fucking argue with that. But, like you said, I would like to hear from someone of the African American persuasion to actually, talk from their perspective, because like we're all brothers on this planet, we should fucking, or at least all got to fucking share it. But in this business in particular, we are, and I know that that it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, but I would love to break it down here in a calm, rational discussion where everybody loves and respects each other and can just put it out there on the table.
Yeah, because there's just, if I go to a Ludacris concert, and I'm obviously there's probably not a ton of white people there. I'm there. I'm surrounded by black people. I'm singing along with Ludacris. Is that allowed? Am I allowed to sing the song with Ludacris like everyone else in the building is doing? But he's obviously going to drop N-bomb in his songs. If I say that, do people like, oh, you can't sing that song? I think, and there's people out there that I think would feel that way, that if you were at the red light jamming to Ludacris and you were singing those lyrics, people would be like, oh, my God, are you crazy? You can't say that. So where's the and I don't mind at all, but obviously there's a big difference. You see, like maybe black comedians or Hispanic comedians, they can make fun of white people in a lot of various ways, and I think it's not even ever thought about. But if a white comedian did something similar, I think it could be made into a big deal. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
I think it would be now. And comedy is always supposed to be one of those things where it's like anything goes. You can't have sensitive feelings in comedy. Like, you've got to be able to just go for the fucking jugular, no matter what it is. And that's always been accepted in comedy, but not so much in other forms of entertainment. And now, and even in comedy, like, when comedians are having to apologize for their jokes, it's definitely a tense time. So anyway, like with the Hogan thing, like, fuck, it sucks. And like, unfortunately, more shit just keeps coming out. They'll make him sound worse. And, he just needs to, like, disappear for a while, and he'll come back, and people will forgive him, and he'll take his fucking lumps like he deserves to, and that's going to be that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just, it's a real big deal right now, and, hopefully we can line something up like that with, like you said, Trevor Eon's a good guy to talk to, and I'm sure a lot of wrestling fans would love to hear his thoughts because, he's kind of an up-and-coming kid, but, I was thinking,
Murder One, Corey Chavis. You got a lot of great friends who, even Caprice Coleman might be willing to weigh in.
Because I know, Murder One's the type of guy. He's passionate about things. He'll he'll let you know his thoughts about it, and he'll, he's not afraid to shy away from what he's thinking or saying, and that's how me and you are on this podcast. So, we know a number of guys that I would love to just be able to just say, hey, explain it to us. What's the deal? And where's the line between, oh, that guy's just being silly, and, oh, that guy's a huge racist?
Yeah, the life is about always growing and evolving and educating yourself. So, you can't do that without getting other people's perspectives. And, on the whole Hulk thing, they'll move along to something else. Somebody will do something worse, and, he'll be forgotten. But right now, he's the fodder for some hilarious memes.
Definitely.
So the only other thing I wanted to talk about, just we put over Corey Hollis earlier, debuting on Ring of Honor, and big props to him. But also Dash Wilder from WWE NXT, a former guest of the show, used to be called Steven Walters. He's a good friend of ours, and got a big first win on TV tonight. So I was excited to see that. Looks like they're finally doing something with him and his partner Scott Dawson, the Mechanics. Couldn't happen to a better guy or a more hardworking guy. So. Very, very excited to see what the future holds for him. We'll just end the wrestling news on a little positivity there.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that happened. I'll have to check that out for sure. That's awesome. I think those guys have a really good upside. I think maybe they need to try to work on a better tag team name, which might not fall on their shoulders. But they just have a good look. They have a good. They have the matching gear. They have a similar look. They're kind of a throwback team to, the Arn and Tully days, which is, awesome. So, hopefully good things happen for those guys for sure.
Yeah, they beat Enzo and Cass. Like, that's, clean in the middle with their finish, so that's pretty huge.
Yeah, that is, because those guys are, those guys are kind of NXT stars.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that's awesome. I'll definitely check that out.
We're going to head now to a little bit of a brief bitch fest before we get into the popular fail for this week.
Oh, man, why do you hate everything new? Partly because I don't understand it, and partly because fuck you. It's time for Old Man Haters.
What's wrong with you? It's either this show or indigestion. I hope it's indigestion.
Why?
It'll get better in a little while.
It's time for Old Man Haters. I'm going to bitch about something that's not related to wrestling or current events, somewhat. The rant this week is entitled Relationship Suicide Squad, and I've actually done a similar bit to this when it was called the Revs Rant back in the day, but the popularity of the film Suicide Squad coming out and the excitement of its anticipation has gotten, has brought this back to the forefront of my social media. But, hey, it's better than people arguing about politics any day of the week. But still, a disturbing number of couples seem to have this romanticized ideal of modeling their relationship after the Joker and Harley Quinn. Two very famous comic book characters, two of my favorite DC characters. They're fantastic. They're intriguing. They're entertaining. They're hateable when needed as villains. They're really the perfect foils to Batman and have their own crazy relationship dynamic that's very interesting. But why in the ever-loving fuck would you want to be like them? That I don't understand. Just, I kind of think you might be missing something there. Beyond the fact that they look cool in their clown makeup. If you'd ever bothered to pick up a comic, which most of you seem that you did, like most of you reference things that lead me to believe you're familiar with the canon and the source material. He's abusive as fuck to her, right? Like, he fucking beats her and cuts her, and he's the reason she's got fucking bleached out skin like him. because he poured acid on her. And she's the scorned but often returning lover who just, can't resist his charms and always goes back to his abusive, horrible shit. So, like, the overwhelming arc of the thing is that you want to see Harley escape the Joker, and even though she's batshit crazy, she's got a bit more of a tender side that you can relate to, and you want to see her break free from his insanity and his oppression, and she never does, and that's kind of the carrot that they dangle to keep the drama going. But again, is that what the fuck you want your relationship to be like? Because that don't sound good to me. Your thoughts?
Man, women have been like that for a long time, man. I mean, you see women that you hear about these women that get beat by their husbands and stuff, and they always go back and they always forgive them and make excuses for them, and then it happens again and again and again. It's like, why does that happen? And, there's no real explanation for it other than maybe, these guys get to women and make them feel so low about themselves where they truly believe they can't do any better or no one else will want them. And that's kind of a sort of what you're talking about with, it's a little bit different, obviously, but, Joker just abusing her and she just always comes back for more. I mean, relationship has been like that a long time, but I think now it's just people saying they want to be like that, and they kind of, I don't think they pick up and see the things you're talking about. They just kind of see the excitement of this evil duo that, like a Bonnie and Clyde, robbing banks and doing all this stuff together and all the excitement and, a lot of, whether it be married couples or couples in a relationship for a while, there may not be that excitement level, but these two are running around, raising hell, and, who can't relate to that? Everybody, even the nicest of nice guys or the sweet girl next door, have that side of them that just wants to go out and just fuck shit up and destroy stuff, and I think that kind of plays into that. But, yeah, it's definitely crazy that people kind of want to model their relationship after that. I mean,
it's
the
strange
two
to me,
characters they're literally psychotic.
Yeah, in every sense of the word, like over the top. But, it's strange to me that in the era of like 2015 where everything's about the strong woman and, that's what's doing business at the box office and, but, in society as a whole is really pushing that like that's still such a popular thing. Like, fucking model yourself out or Wonder Woman. Shit. she don't let nobody tell her what the fuck to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's those women that, like you say, they want to be the strong, independent, but then I think there's still women that want, sometimes they don't even admit it maybe, but they want that guy to be the man and just flat out tell them. And I mean, I've spoke to women, this is a reason we have a segment called Dear Andy, is because I've spoke to countless women where they're just like, yeah, I really want a guy to just tell me what to do. And I'm like, why do you want that? Why is that better than a guy that'll ask your opinion? The old, you shouldn't go on dates and ask the woman where she wants to eat. You should just tell her. And that's the thing. How many times have you heard women complain about, the guy just kept asking me what I wanted. God forbid the guy be considerate about, something you would like to eat instead of just telling you. I've read countless online articles and just interviews and everything that's, states don't ever do that. Just have a plan and do it and say, this is where we're going. Boom. And that's what women want. So, it's odd. And of course that doesn't go for 100%, but it seems to be the majority. So instead of maybe I can beat me a woman that'll call me Mr. A.
Hey, there seems to be a fucking plethora of them out there on Facebook, and those relationships don't seem to last very long. Those Harleys are moving on to a new Joker pretty quickly, so you probably find you one pretty quickly.
Throw out some feelers for that. Hey, I had something quick to bitch about. It's something we bitched about before, but it's really fresh on my mind. I've been going through and watching all the old NWA and WCW pay-per-views just start to finish in order. And, we've countlessly harped on young guys in the business, how they should watch old matches to learn from, and not just, current guys, just guys that paved the way. They should be watching them and learn how to work and stuff. And, man, watching this old stuff, and there's matches on these old pay-per-views that you, even look at on paper, and you're like, that match isn't going to be that good. Why is it on pay-per-view? And you think about it maybe when you're a child, or maybe you watch it a few years ago, and you're like, yeah, that match wasn't that good. Dude, most of those cards, every match is, really good. Just simple story, simple spots that are exciting, the crowd's into it, you don't have to do anything crazy. I just wish young guys in the business would just really watch that stuff and pay attention to it and just pick up these little things that, everybody, not just guys that Steamboat or Flair or Arn and Tully, guys that people always talk about you can learn from, but just anybody that's on those cards, those early, the 80s and the early 90s cards, they know how to work, and they're good, and they're solid hands, whether, they're the most exciting guys or maybe they're kind of a little more boring or don't have a big character. But, man, there's so much to learn, just the smallest thing you just watch and you just see how they do or how they look or how they sell or how they transition into spots. And I just don't understand why more guys won't, pay attention to that stuff from guys who paved the way so we actually have a wrestling business to bitch about, and it's just nobody does.
There is a lack of consideration for just watching. There was such a dramatic shift in styles in wrestling in the late 90s, and it never really went back. And wrestling kind of lost something in that, it really did. And I would love for nothing more to see that come back. I don't know that it ever will, but I can certainly dream. And it doesn't not a knock on current wrestling. It's just it's evolved and it's changed over time. And the more people have accepted it as a form of entertainment, which was a necessity, let's be honest, the more it has become open to disregard some of those basic tenets, and that's unfortunate.
I think it's more so like that now than it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. On a lot of points, not as a whole, but on some levels, there's a little bit more focus on, some storytelling and things like that, and at least in some of the bigger matches. But yeah, there was, I'm in the mid 1995, and when Hogan came into WCW, man, that's what people should be mad about Hogan. Not the N-bomb, him coming to WCW and ruin that in-ring product, because that shit changes overnight. I mean, it's so weird that they may have never been profitable at all without Hogan in the NWO, but that was the same type of stuff that just killed them, because it goes from awesome cards to borderline unwatchable.
Oh, it was
in the span of months.
Yeah, it was it was going from this Mid-South wrestling, Bill Watts inspired, with a little bit Japan influence style. It's old school Southern wrestling, but with some, they had some modern influences. They were bringing in Liger and a lot of the other Japanese talents. And it was just I loved the product, 92, 93. 94, it was like WWF 1988 slowed down.
Yeah, and then 95, I mean, it's just, and there's good talents, Savage and Boss, Big Bubba, Earthquake. I mean, these guys can work, but it is not the same at all. And the stories, the angles are just so, I mean, they just have kind of that Hogan stamp written all over them. Oh, man, they are just not as good. And, man, he comes in there and he just kills Vader, because Vader was, and Vader's a guy that I've always been oh, Vader was a great big man. He's awesome. And people are oh, Vader was really good. Go back and watch. Vader wasn't really good. Vader was fucking amazing. I mean, he was just amazing. If you go back and watch that Great American Bash 1992 match with Vader and Sting, it's just so ahead of its time, just the way they pace it and just the way they do it, man. I mean, I could just name countless of matches and people like that guys should just go back and watch. And, I mean, not even watch for spot, just not watch for anything. Just sit back and relax and try to be a fan and just watch what they do and see how the fans react, and it's just amazing. And, unfortunately, you know, we were going to kick it into a little fucker fail and followed up by some Dear Andy, but we've got some news today as we record this that Roddy Piper was found dead, I believe, at age 61. Looks like natural causes, so, you know, that's always good. You hate to when you hear about, you know, drugs claiming somebody else or something, but, you know, we just kind of getting over this Dusty Rhodes news, and now this, man, it's hard to deal with.
Been a rough couple of years, man, to be in the wrestling business. Just so many of the heroes. We're getting to that age now, I think. You know, most of our heroes are older. Certainly wasn't old. 61 is you know, it's not a young buck by any means, but it's not like decrepit or feebly old. You know, a lot of people are healthy and active in their 60s, and Piper no exception. And just, you know, but he had some health issues. He fought cancer and beat it. And it was, you know, actually a heart attack that claimed him in his sleep. Man, that was hard to hear. Like, I actually knew Dusty a lot better than Piper. My interactions with Piper were extremely limited. But just, like, it didn't matter. You know, he had that much of an influence just as a performer, you know, as a fan. And then when you get in the business, and this stuff I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, you learn more about the men behind what you grew up watching from the people that know them. And, you know, even if you don't maybe necessarily know them directly, odds are if you've been in the business for any length of time and you've traveled any number of places, you've worked with people who did, you know, and spent extensive time with guys like Piper, and stories that I could tell. But, like, he always looked out for the boys, and that was a huge thing. And like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a little bit. But what were your earliest memories of the Pipes?
Man, I mean, this is a guy, you know, we talked about our top 10 a couple of episodes back, and, you know, he, like Dusty, if we had done a top 20, he would have definitely been on the list for me. I just always thought his promos were so amazing. I mean, looking back now, they're definitely amazing, and he was so one of a kind. I mean, even if you try to borrow or take anything from Roddy Piper, you just can't even do it without being seen as a Roddy Piper ripoff. I mean, it's just something that you can't duplicate at all. He was just so wild and all over the place. And you know, I got a lot of early memories of him. Kind of my biggest memory, and it's not his biggest moment by any means, and he's had a lot of great moments, but it was just this cool little thing, especially as an 8-year-old kid. It was just so cool to me. But after he had won the Intercontinental title at the 1992 Royal Rumble from the Mountie, they had a rematch on Saturday night's main event when it came on Fox. There was like 2 of those that came on Fox instead of NBC. It was one of the last 2 that they showed before bringing it back several years later. And he worked the Mountie in the rematch, and I just remember that the Mountie used to use the big cow prod, you know, and he shocked Piper, and he just wear down on it. And, you know, they had the cheesy sound effect back then, but he got so much heat with that, and it was so over. But he shocked Piper, and Piper just gets up and no-sells it, you know, and beats him and retains the title. But then he takes his shirt off, and he's got this like vest that says shockproof under it. And I remember as a kid just eating that up, just being like, oh, he got him. How awesome is that? It was just like such a cool moment. And then, you know, being even back then, Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler, but they built that match at WrestleMania 8, which, I mean, it's probably the most underrated WrestleMania match of all time, in my opinion. I mean, it does get talked about a little bit more now, and maybe there are some other great matches that don't, but I mean, this match is like, I mean, it's a top 10, top 20 WrestleMania match easy, and it's kind of not held in that regard, it seems. But this match was so great, and it was 2 baby faces, you know, 2 friends, and they they had this history, and that's how they built it up. And then the promo before was just so good. It was so good with Piper just trying to make light of the situation, and Bret Hart's just real serious, ready to compete, because that was the Hitman character. And they just kind of get into it, and then they go out there and just have this amazing match. And Bret Hart gets color off the uppercut punch from Piper, because Piper had that salty past. He would break the rules, so he's kind of the first guy to throw a punch in the match, and Bret Hart gets color off of it. And you may remember that the WWF was very anti-color back then, and Ric Flair also got color that night, and he got in huge trouble for it because he got caught doing it. But Bret Hart, they believe, it was hard way, because he did it so. I mean, you can see him do it, but he just did it so sly and so quick that they believed him when he said it was hard way. And they just have an amazing match, an amazing finish. Yeah, the finish is amazing. Everybody kind of knows it. With the Piper has the sleeper hold on Bret, and he kicks off the turnbuckles. And real quick, I went to a comic convention 2 years ago in Knoxville, and Roddy Piper was there, and he just happened to be doing his Q&A while I was there. And I usually don't do those things at the conventions. I mean, they're cool, but I just really don't check them out. But I was there, so I went and sit in, and it was kind of the same questions over and over, and it was just a very laid-back deal. So I said, to hell with it. I'm going to be a fan again and be a mark again, and I'm going to ask him. And I went up there and I asked him if it was designed, if the angle was planned ahead of time for Bret to drop the belt to the Mountie very randomly at a house show, for Piper to get it, to drop it back, to put Bret over, because Piper had never been pinned in the WWF, which is insane to think about. Yeah, it's crazy. Hogan, nobody had ever pinned him. And he said, yeah. He goes, that was the idea, that was the plan, and to put him over. And he explained something I'd heard him explain before, where, the sleeper holds an offensive move, and the ref should have come to him first, but he counted the shoulders, so he didn't really beat him. And so I followed up, and I said, did y'all come up with that finish so if you stuck around, you would have the gripe in case you wanted to do a rematch? And he said, oh, yeah, of course. And that's so genius. He protected himself. He put Bret over. Bret was champion 6 months after that. He made Bret Hart a star. He's the only guy to pin him in the WWF. And the finish was great. He could have come back with it at any moment. And they built the angle, even though it was just a few months in advance. But I mean, you don't see stuff like that happen nowadays. Any fan back then would have just thought, oh, the Mountie, they randomly put the belt on him and then they dropped it to Piper. But it was just designed to give Bret Hart this huge boost, and it's just so awesome. That little span was my big memory of Piper. But there's so many more classic moments, and watching videos and everything. I mean, he's just so legendary and amazing.
Oh, yeah, that match definitely stands out. I remember that was one of the earliest pay-per-views my mom let me buy at my house. I'd been to several previous to that. It was usually like a pool effort where you'd get your friends together and you'd rake up your yard mowing money and all chip in to get the pay-per-view. But in this case, it was like a birthday present or something, or I think actually it was I got good grades. And so my mom got me that WrestleMania at my house, and I love that fucking match. I love that fucking match. It's the match I typically give as an example for two young baby faces who are, having trouble with that babyface match, which you'll often get thrown on the indies, especially in cases where the booker is just throwing it out there. It's not really like that. It happens a lot. So the guys are stuck with trying to, a lot of times, make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Easy to do a babyface match if you have an issue, and certainly they had a bit of an issue to sell it. But even if you don't, that match is a good match to watch just to see how neither one of them turned heel. They all stayed within the parameters of what they did, but they definitely escalated the violence, and escalated the fight. It started out as a friendly athletic contest, and it quickly escalated into a brawl. And but you know, in the end, they were still able to hug each other and shake hands, and they both were more over because of it as a result. You know, and that's something, you know, watch how these guys do this, because you can take a lot from that in terms of learning how to escalate a situation without one of you just becoming a heel and starting to pull the tights and fucking pull the hair and gouge the eyes, etc.
Yeah, definitely, and it helps when it helps when one of the baby faces has that well-known past of being a heel. And I always like Piper. Piper and Savage are kind of the first two I go to that when they turned babyface, they didn't change a whole lot. So it was very believable. They would still, you know, and the commentators would play it up, and it was, you know, they would make mention to it. They would still bend those rules when they had to or when they felt the need to. So when Piper lets Brett get back in, he says his boot's untied, and you know, he's just kind of standing back, so Brett bends down to untie it. He takes that sucker punch and pops him in the face, and Brett gets the color. And then, you know, towards the end of the match, he gets the bell, and the ref's down. He goes to, like he's going to hit Brett with it, but the crowd's saying, no, don't do it. And he has that change of heart, and ultimately kind of leads to him losing because he doesn't do that. But it's so great if you have, you know, and that's something maybe it didn't come across, maybe it did, but maybe you saw it. But, you know, when the Devil's Rejects at Empire, when we turned babyface, that's the type of stuff like I would do. I didn't really change a whole lot as far as not breaking certain rules, but, you know, there'd be those moments where I would do something underhanded because, you know, we were big, evil, bad guys, and, you know, and that doesn't just go away overnight because you saved a babyface or something. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I always hated that. And that's a trope a lot of indie shows run into. You know, you have a hot heel act, and then, you know, by necessity, no matter how good of a heel you are, if you stick around in the territory and you don't leave and come back, unless you're Jeff G. Bailey, and even eventually they had to turn him babyface. Now, it took them fucking 15 years, but they did. But, you know, so like I say, as a heel, even if you're the best heel in the world, eventually, if you're that good at your job, they're going to want to start cheering for you eventually, because, and that doesn't mean you're not doing your job as a heel. That you know, I'm talking about a heel that had a run somewhere on top of a place and drew some money, and, you know, was there for a consistent period of time. Eventually, they develop a bit of a respect to you because typically a new asshole will come along, and you're at least the asshole they know, and so they start to root for you, and then eventually the babyface thing takes over. And so, you know, a lot of guys, they'll just, okay, well, I'm a babyface now, so I guess I got to go slap these fives and just, like, totally fucking rah-rah. But, you know, that's not always the way to go because, like you said, it ain't exactly realistic.
Yeah, that's when people won't believe it as much, I think, especially if you do it a lot, which is done a lot these days. You know, used to you would be heel or face for quite a while before you change, not just a year or so. But that, I think that always helped it, you know, and those are, Piper and Savage are definitely the go-to guys that I think of that always did a very good job of that. You know, Piper's regarded as one of the greatest heels of all time, but I think you've got to, why not consider him one of the greatest baby faces of all time? I mean, his run as babyface was just, I mean, it was top-notch too. It was amazing, you know. He was always over. He always knew how to get over and stay over. And, you know, he did a smart thing. He would take some breaks and make some movies and, you know, come back and go in and out a little bit and do some hot stuff. And, you know, he had the right to do that. He was Roddy Piper. He was a made man. It was very smart of him to do that. What do you think about the debate? Because I think it's a real debate. I think it's something that you don't know the answer. Did WrestleMania sell because of Hulk Hogan, or did WrestleMania sell because people wanted to see Hulk Hogan beat the shit out of Roddy Piper?
Yeah, that's a good fucking point. I mean, we were just talking about, you know, earlier, you know, on them selling WrestleMania 1 on Hogan. Now, of course, that's not to slight Piper at all, because Hogan was certainly who they were paying. I think, you know, it's both. I mean, the answer is both. You can't you have the best fucking heel in the world, and if your babyface sucks shit, then nobody's gonna care. You have the best babyface in the world, and vice versa. If the heel is fucking lame dick, nobody's gonna give a fuck. It's that volatile electricity between the two. But you don't have it without either one of them. Is my answer.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it just kind of comes across in some stuff that you've read or heard interview wise with Hogan. He kind of puts all the credit on him and maybe Vince McMahon, but I think it's the whole team. I mean, obviously Hogan was a draw, but what's going to be a better story? Batman fighting, I don't know, who's the total C-rate Batman villain?
They're not making a movie of Batman versus fucking Crazy Quilt, okay?
Exactly. Do you want to see Batman versus Crazy Quilt, or you want to see Batman versus Joker? And Roddy Piper was definitely Hulk Hogan's Joker in 1985 to sell
in many
WrestleMania.
ways.
Yes. So I mean, he was probably the perfect guy for that. The whole setup with the Rock and Wrestling Connection and Cyndi Lauper and just the whole thing. He was just so great at his job, and he did such a good job protecting himself by he never got pinned in those situations with Hogan or anybody up until 1992. But he could put guys over, but he wouldn't take the pinfall. He always looked strong. He always looked viable, and I don't know if that was because he had kind of seen what happened to guys that Hogan worked with, because Hogan could work with guys for quite a while, and they would be huge, and then, they were making good money, but once it was over, it was over. Very, very, very few times the guys Hogan worked with got to just go down the card and stay, prominent. Other than the Andres and the Savages and, Piper, that didn't really happen. Every guy Hogan worked with was doing great business with Hogan, but once it was over, they were kind of gone, They
were either gone or they were in like a tag team, working around the middle of the card.
Yeah, they definitely never saw the heights of when they were working with Hogan. After Hogan beat them, it was over. Maybe Piper saw that. Maybe he just, and back then there was that option because there were other places to go. Even though, the WWF was the big money and the big time, there were still other places to go, and you could kind of pull that card if you had the means and the stroke. But nowadays, that wouldn't fly at all, and rightfully so. It's a completely different situation and time. But, it'd be funny to see someone try to pull a Piper now with Vince McMahon and say, no, I don't think I can put John Cena over clean and see what would happen.
They kind of have one in Lesnar, to be honest. He's one of the only, I have a great deal of respect for him in that aspect because he kind of does the same thing in that he creates his own deals. He got deals that the other guys don't because he's got that much drawing power that they, or at least they feel he does, that they give it to him. And you're right, it wouldn't fly today in most circumstances. You have to be a really fucking major money player to be able to do something like that, and most guys won't. We will rarely see a guy with the balls the size of Roddy Piper ever again in the wrestling business. It's just a different breed of guys now, and that's not a slight on them personally, but as far as what the wrestling business is and what type of individual it takes to be successful in what it is, it's just a whole different ball game now. But just like I said, he had the biggest balls, dude. He would tell Vince McMahon to fuck off in a heartbeat, and many people were fucking terrified to do that, and he didn't give a fuck. Even to the later years, where he would come back for a little bit, and there'd be kind of a falling out. He'd tell Vince to get fucked, then he'd come back. Because, they knew Piper was always money, so, he always had other options because he had become a celebrity. They Live, such a great fucking movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, and he proved that he could be a crossover star. Hell, he was just recently doing Always Sunny in Philadelphia, had a reoccurring role on there as an old, bitter, basically the Tank of Northeastern indie wrestling, where he was this old fucking retired indie wrestler who's, crazy as fuck. and like lived out of his fucking Oldsmobile and shit.
You know,
it was fucking great.
Tank kind of, you know, we were texting earlier. You know, I told him that Piper had died, and he was a pretty big Piper fan, and you know, he was like, "Man, this sucks, man." And you don't, you know, I mean, you don't get this in football and baseball and basketball, you know, just guys just dropping like flies constantly, like pro wrestling. And you know, we grew up on this stuff. I mean, these guys were like our babysitters, you know. You know, these guys raised, if you're a wrestling fan, a hardcore wrestling fan, you were raised by these guys. You know, every Saturday, every Monday, Sundays, you know, any chance you could get, you saw these guys, and they're just, the memories are just stamped in your mind. And Tank kind of hit it perfect with saying, like, those type of guys are the closest things to, like, real-life superheroes. You know, so especially when you get attached to them as a child, you know, it just sticks with you. And it just, when they, you know, we've lost so many great ones over the past, you know, look at the past decade or so, you can just keep naming guys that from that era, that great era of wrestling, that are just, you know, gone. And it's such a shame. And, you know,
there's
and it's
so few left now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and I mean, it's just, and it's the great guys, you know. It's not even guys that you don't even, you know, that you didn't see as much, or that weren't in top programs, or that you didn't have that attachment to. It's just, it's the Warriors and Savages and Dusties and Pipers, and, you know, the list just goes on and on and on, you know. And it's just horrible. It's really sad every time this happens. And that video you posted on Facebook, man, that I watched. Phew, man, that one was rough, man. Just, it was before the Piper retirement, quote unquote, at WrestleMania 3, and it's just such a well done thing, and you know, well done for almost 20 years ago now. 30 years, I'm sorry, almost 30 years.
The Frank Sinatra My Way, you know, just beautiful, and like apropos to his passing as well, you know, because he definitely did it his way. That's for fucking sure. And, you know, a true outlaw and a rebel and just a total inspiration my entire life. Like, never so much as because, you know, he didn't do a lot in the ring. He didn't fucking have to. You know, you were just enamored with every fucking move he made, every word he said. He was just one of those unique, true characters that, like you said, real-life superheroes that only really pro wrestling breeds that sort of character. My earliest memory of Piper probably would have been on the cartoon, actually, the Rock and Wrestling cartoon, and WrestleMania 1 and that era of stuff, you know. But, like, probably my favorite memory, and I have to say the match with Brett's probably my favorite in-ring, like, wrestling match, you know. But, man, I fucking loved the Hollywood Backlot Brawl from WrestleMania 12. That was so fucking stiff. And, like, my stepdad, he fucking hates wrestling. He just gave me shit all the time, you know. Oh, look at those sissies, blah, 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 blah. They're not even hitting each other. And he respected Piper. Like, he respected Piper. He watched that angle with me as it played out, and then watched the big match at WrestleMania. And he was like, an avid hater of professional wrestling, was, like, jumping up and down, screaming for Roddy Piper to whoop that Goldust's ass. And you know, it was a lot of hullabaloo and like bullshit, like with the OJ thing with the Bronco, you know. So that kind of killed the momentum. But like just the shit they filmed in the alley, like fighting, was just so fucking stiff and just like legit, you know. And then the shit at the ring, it was all gaga, but that memory just sticks with me a lot because of, like I said, you had a guy who was not just a non-wrestling fan, but an avid wrestling hater, like, on his feet cheering for Piper.
Yeah, because, I mean, Piper, he was like, it seemed like it was really him in real life, but it was also kind of his character. He was just like that man's man, like, you know, he was a fighter. He was just a scrapper. You know, he came up the hard way, and, you know, and like you said, he didn't do much in the ring, but he didn't have to. Like, that's such a good example of stuff guys could watch and just see that this guy did not do a bunch of fancy stuff. But he always told a story. His stuff always looked good and crisp and legit. And, you know, that is just so much better than a lot of choreographed stuff.
Oh, my God, man.
More over. I mean, always.
Yeah. Piper got more out of a fucking Three Stooges routine spot with like a fucking block the fucking eye poke and come back and give him a fucking eye poke. And they do the goddamn curly shuffle and fucking spin around and he grabs them and bends them over his knee and fucking spanks their ass. Like, he got more out of that spot than any of you kids will ever get in your entire careers out of 50 fucking 450 splashes, moonsaults, head drops, you name it. And anyway, he was doing nothing. He did not break his body down doing it. It was, like, just amazing.
Absolutely. And you know, the promos, you know, we talked about, you know, when we went over our top 10, I said, in my opinion, the promo was Mick Foley is because he can do everything so well, make you laugh, make you cry, make you happy, make you mad, sad. Piper was another guy right there. I mean, depending on what story he was telling you, he was so, anytime he had any direction, because I remember, which this was the case for a lot of people, I remember in WCW where there was no direction, and you could tell there was no direction. A lot of people's promos were just so all over the place. It's like, what the hell are they talking about? But anytime he had direction, his promos were so real. Even though he would say the ridiculous stuff and the ridiculous lines, but they were so real. You believed what he said. He said he was going to do something. You believed it. He would tell a story, and I mean, he could just talk to you. He wouldn't raise his voice. He could just tell you plain and simple what was going to happen, and you dug it and you listened to it. Or he would just go crazy and be shaking his head and talking all high-pitched and insane, and you're like, man, what is this guy doing? But it's so good, and I get what he's saying, and I want to see him fight whoever he's talking about. You know, he was so good at that stuff. So unique and original.
Yeah, I loved him as a commentator as well. He wasn't a commentator for very long in the Fed, but
I did too. That's something else I was about to say. I mean, because you mentioned the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, you know, at that time he was brought back as the interim president when Gorilla Monsoon got attacked by Vader. And, you know, he was so good in that role, and he was just so good in all of these roles. Obviously, he had history as a manager, but I loved his commentary, man. He commented. My favorite pay-per-view of all time is SummerSlam 91. You know, it's just one I remember as a kid watching and renting and all of that stuff. And, you know, he does the commentary on it. You know, he's with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla, and it's so good. I thought he was a great color commentator. I mean, he was amazing.
Yeah, Survivor Series 90. He was also the color commentator. That's like my favorite Survivor Series ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of that point is when he had the motorcycle accident, I guess. And he was out of the ring. You know, he did the thing where he taught Virgil to fight against DiBiase, and that was great shit. I mean, how great was that at WrestleMania 7 when he's like telling Virgil to get up and
he made you care about Virgil, so that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, Virgil's telling him to get up after, you know, DiBiase and Sherry kind of attacked him, and he gets up, and, oh, man, Virgil was over like $1 million. And then at SummerSlam, you know, he's doing the commentary, and he's rooting for Virgil, and, I mean, he was so good. I loved him on commentary, man. I really did.
Yeah,
I would say I would say he was one of the better. You know, and especially that time frame when they had to replace Jesse Ventura, they really tried out a lot of people. I mean, a whole lot of people. I remember, you know, lesser known like Jim Neidhart did it, Jim Duggan did it, Hillbilly Jim. You know, there was a lot of guys that did commentary, and I don't know of many wrestlers that I think were better at color commentary than Piper. You know, obviously like a Lawler and Bobby Heenan was great, you know, but and Jesse Ventura, you know, he was awesome as well. But I thought Piper was really good. I really dug him on commentary.
Yeah, nobody really talks about that, but like, fuck yeah, I loved his color commentary days.
Yeah, and I mean, he was legit, and he really, you know, he sold the stories and stuff, but he talked about, you know, he kind of talked about real stuff, and he knew the characters, and you know, he wasn't just out there just making an easy buck. He took a lot of pride in it and stuff, and actually, did his homework and put guys over and just everything. I mean, he was awesome, in that time frame when they were using everybody. He was I think he was probably the best one, and obviously they did too, because he, like you said, he did a lot of pay-per-views. I mean, all the pay-per-views probably in that year and a half little stretch that he was doing it.
He was always, critical of Hogan, though, too, even though he's a babyface, keeping that thing alive, just going back to him always protecting his shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's so, how awesome is that? Who would do that?
Yeah, it's
Savage
fucking
kind
amazing.
of did that, too. Yeah, Savage kind of did that, too, as commentary. On commentary, but most people would just you start kissing Hogan's ass, but he kind of didn't. He'd put him over, but he'd be like, I don't know about him, Gorilla, and it was just that stuff that was awesome. And I remember times when the Warrior would be working and he would just do something off the wall or not properly or just do something stupid. Like Piper calling him out on it, like, why is he doing that? He should not be doing that. He should go for the cover and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's looking back, I'm like, that's so funny. He's basically shooting, but he's doing his job.
Yeah. That's an often overlooked part of the Piper career, but worth going and checking out if you never noticed it before. Definitely give that stuff a look. We talk about Piper the Man, just nothing but millions of stories coming in off social media from the wrestling world, and many of these stories I've heard personally from guys, and some that I heard for the first time. So, it's been a great, the whole wrestling community is kind of mourning together right now, and it's a bit of a positive time, especially in the wake of all this Hogan shit. It's to at least see that everybody's sharing their love and their fond memories of Piper, and a lot of the indie guys, that have worked with him, and not so indie guys, even all the way up to the WWE. Guys are sharing stories of his generosity and just what type of guy he was as far as an advocate for the boys. He was one of the early guys. Had Jesse Ventura gotten unionization, Piper would have been right behind that. He was always trying to stand up for the boys. There's many stories of him where he would make sure the boys got taken care of. He would pay underneath guys out of his own pocket a little more money so they could eat better, and they could sit at the fancy table and dine with everybody instead of having to fucking eat tuna fish sandwiches. Just there's not a lot of guys that would do that. I saw sort of an indie guy who did a Piper's Pit with him, and apparently the underneath card didn't get paid because Piper got brought in, of course, and he fucking turned around and gave the money back to the promoter and told him to pay the boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's something no one would do.
One motherfucker on the indies today that would fucking do that, of that stature.
Oh, yeah, that's not happening. That's just, it's just not.
No.
Yeah, when I think of him taking care of the boys, too, I think back to a lot of that stuff, hear the stories about with Mr. T, and he's just like, I'm not putting him over because it's just a slap in the face to all the boys to have this guy come in from Hollywood and make me look like a clown and stuff, and and he's right. And it's so awesome that he did that. He stood up and was like, this guy is not one of us, and I'm not going to let him beat one of us, and then go back to Hollywood and talk about how phony wrestling is and how he beat Roddy Piper and stuff. That's so awesome.
Yeah, just constantly looking out for guys, man. Constantly looking out for the business. You couldn't have had a better advocate for the wrestling business than Roddy Piper internally. One of the most generous guys by all accounts. And I even got a little bit of a personal story about that. I was, when NWA Legends Fan Fest, which is going on in Charlotte right now as we record this, and I'm awful jealous that I'm not there, but had other things going on here. That this is always such a great time. Got to be booked on one when we were in Atlanta. It's kind of the handler of my uncle, Gypsy Joe, and he was there signing autographs, making an appearance, and Piper was there. And so, you know, we worked on the same show with Piper. I already got to meet, like, Stan Hansen and a bunch of awesome people and sit around and listen and tell stories, which is just so fucking awesome anytime you get a chance to hang out with any of those veterans. Like, you're a fucking fool if you don't take it. Like, this year they've got this fucking training seminar that's like Rip Rogers, Les Thatcher, Lance Storm, fucking Tom Pritchard, and Tully Blanchard, I think, like, running a fucking training seminar, like a fucking 4-day camp. Like,
that's insane.
Are you fucking stupid if you don't go to that? Like, really? You know? So, but anyway, we were at this the Atlanta Fan Fest, and Joe was telling me about Piper. He's like, oh, yeah, you know, I worked in Portland, and Piper is just fucking awesome, and he just, you know, he always took such good care of everybody. Again, there's that recurring theme. You know, he was really kind to me. He gave me money, you know, when I was down and out, and fucking helped me and this, that, and the other. You know, Joe could just say nothing but good things about him. So, you know, Joe snuck in and got to spend some time with him, and Piper was just so tickled to see him. Like, you know, he didn't even know he was still alive. So, you know, Piper got all, like, teary-eyed and shit seeing him. And, you know, they just had, like, a real fucking moment. Like, they hugged and shit, and it was fucking awesome, you know. And that made hit Joe's fucking weekend, like getting to hang out with Piper for a minute and fucking catch up. And just, you know, he was so gracious and so cool and, like, so respectful, you know, calling him sir because Joe's a veteran over Piper. So, you know, calling him sir, yes, sir, just blew my fucking mind.
Yeah, that's, love when you see the guys like that, like, just, you love when you find out that they're class acts, you know. So many times a lot of guys you hear negative stories about of them being a douchebag or, you know, trying to act like a big shot or something like that. But, you know, that's really cool that he would call him sir and, you know, stuff like that because, you know, I mean, Roddy Piper is one of the biggest names of all time in the business. And like you said, crossing over to Hollywood and making, you know, tons of movies. So for him to, you know, be excited to see Joe and calling him sir and things like that. That's just really cool.
Yeah, like a lot of the veterans don't like Hogan because they don't think he's one of the boys, but Piper, like, that was just a fucking major thing. He took pride in being one of the boys, always, no matter how big of a star he got. And that tells you something about the guy's character right there.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, something you mentioned, something else we could put over, I mean, that's obviously been put over a million times, is Piper's Pit. You know, especially with you hosting at Empire Wrestling, the live edition of Midnight Black Mass. How many talk shows, quote unquote, do you think there have been in professional wrestling in the last 30 years? Would you say 50? Maybe more?
Yeah, I mean, between 25 and 50, probably, maybe more.
There's been a ton, and there's no, and there've been some good ones. There have been some guys that were really good at it and had really good segments and really big moments on the show and stuff, but there's no close second to the talk show format and wrestling to Piper's Pit. There's not there's like Piper's Pit, and then there's every other one in a completely different list. You know, and it's not even, and I don't even know if he was necessarily the first. I really don't think he was really the first to have that, because I know Buddy Rogers did one, and I want to say it was a little before Piper's. And then, you know, Of course, there could have been others, but it's not because he was the first or anything. It's just that he's just so good at it. He just made it his thing, and every show after it is, you know, wants to be somewhat like it. And, you know, there's been some good ones. There's been some good ones. I mean, and there's been one with huge moments, like the Rockers breaking up on the barbershop, and the cool things they did with Paul Bearer's funeral parlor with Taker coming out of the casket and attacking Hogan and things like that, and the Snake Pit and King's Court. And Shawn Michaels had one, and the modern day, you know, Jericho. You know, it's just so many, but Piper's Pit is number one on every list, I think.
Yeah, no, that's undisputed. I don't think there's anybody that argue with that. I mean, like, yeah, absolutely. Shamelessly, the Midnight Black Mass Live was a total take on Piper's Pit. Absolutely, not necessarily a ripoff, but it's very much a tribute. Because this is one of those things from your childhood that just stands out forever, and you don't think, when you think of a wrestling talk show, you think of Piper's Pit, and everything else is behind that,
Yeah, you have to think you kind of think to name them all. Some have had really short runs, and some have been around a long time, and like I said, others have produced some really cool moments. Nothing really to top maybe the Jimmy Snuka coconut or the setup for WrestleMania 3. I mean, that was huge. The WrestleMania 3 setup took place on Piper's Pit, and he was right in the middle of that, and it was that was an amazing segment. The segments like that used to be just so amazing, they're just a lot fewer and far between nowadays, man. It's a shame.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh well, we've talked about Piper a little bit. Oh, one other thing I thought was really cool, and I hate to really let the cat out of the bag, but I mean, I'm sure most people would know this, but I always thought it was really cool that even though how open the business is now, when Piper talks about breaking that coconut over Jimmy Snuka's head, he talks about it like it was a shoot.
Yeah.
But you can see the coconut is gimmicked in the footage. You can see the lines where it was kind of gimmicked. But he never, I've heard shoot interviews, DVDs, Fed produced, non-Fed produced, everything. He's never said, oh yeah, we gimmicked the coconut. He's always stuck by, he smashed the coconut over Jimmy Snuka's head, but you can see clearly that it's gimmicked. But he never said that. I think that's super cool because the business is so open nowadays and all the secrets are revealed, but that huge event he didn't reveal. He's like, no, that people don't need to know that we gimmicked the coconut.
Yeah. It's like, why not? Like hold on to something, hold on to one thing at least.
Yeah, we don't have to show them all the tricks, but I'm sure, because I just made it a point. I was like, man, how the hell did they do that? And I just watched, and he picks up that exact coconut, and you can just see there's just some discoloration in it where it looks like it had been gimmicked and everything. But still, one of the coolest moments in wrestling, one of the coolest segments in wrestling history right there.
Yeah, and the most memorable, always will be.
Yeah, I know we're running low on time here, and we could go on and on about just memories and things about him. It's just a shame. Well, I guess we'll leave a little space here for a little 10 bell salute.
I think that's a great way to sign off this week on the Midnight Black Mass. For Andrew Alexander, I am the Rev Dan Wilson. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. Thank you, Mr. Roddy Piper, for all of the years of influence, inspiration, and entertainment. You will never be duplicated, sir. 10 bell salute is for you.
This has been a production of the Potty Humor Network. Find us online at youtube.com/Potty Humor or subscribe to us weekly and never miss an episode by searching Potty Humor on iTunes or Stitcher. Thank you for listening and good night.